I should have known something was wrong the moment the real estate agent laughed a little too quickly when I asked why the price was so low. My name is Daniel. I was 31 years old when I bought my first home, a 2-story colonial in a quiet suburb of Cincinnati, Ohio. The house had been on the market for 14 months, which in that neighborhood, in that economy, made absolutely no sense. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a finished basement, a fenced backyard. The asking price was $60,000 below comparable homes on the same street. My realtor said the sellers just wanted a fast close. They were relocating, she told me. They needed to move on. I didn't ask more questions. I should have. The first 3 weeks were normal. I repainted the living room, fixed a leaky faucet in the upstairs bathroom, ordered furniture I couldn't quite afford. I felt the quiet pride of ownership, that particular stillness of standing inside something that belongs to you. I walked the rooms at night just to hear my own footsteps on hardwood. I was happy, genuinely, simply happy. It was the smell that started everything. I noticed it first in the hallway that ran along the back of the house, a narrow corridor connecting the laundry room to the kitchen. It wasn't a rot smell or a mold smell, though I'd feared both in an older home. It was something stranger, stale, almost sweet in a way that made my stomach tighten, like a room that hadn't breathed in a very long time. I checked the laundry room. I checked under the sink. I pulled the washing machine out from the wall and found nothing except a colony of dust bunnies and an old dryer sheet. But every time I stood in that hallway, the smell was there, patient and thick, as if it were coming through the wall itself. I told myself it was the house settling. Old houses exhale. I'd read that somewhere. A month in, I decided to repaint the hallway. It was the one area I hadn't touched, still wearing its old coat of flat, institutional beige.
The kind of color chosen by someone who doesn't want you looking too closely at anything. I started taping the baseboards, and that's when I felt it. A slight give in the wall. Not a crack, not damage. A seam. I pressed both palms flat against the drywall and pushed. The panel moved. I stepped back so fast I hit the opposite wall. My heart was slamming. The panel had swung inward on a pivot, like a door, built flush and seamless into the wall, painted over so many times that the edges had almost completely disappeared into the surrounding surface. Someone had designed this to be invisible. Someone had worked to make sure you wouldn't find it unless you were looking. I stood in that hallway for a full 2 minutes before I moved again. The space behind the panel was small, roughly the size of a large walk-in closet, maybe 8 feet deep and 6 feet wide. There was no light source, so I used my phone. The floor was bare concrete. The walls were unfinished drywall, the insulation exposed between the studs on one side. And it was cold in there. Noticeably, unnervingly colder than the rest of the house, even accounting for the lack of heating. There was a folding chair in the corner. That was the first thing that made my skin go tight. Not a piece of junk left behind during a move. Not a paint-spattered stool or a forgotten ladder. A folding chair, positioned facing the interior wall. The wall that, on the other side, was the kitchen, where I ate, where I made coffee every morning at 6:15. I looked at the wall the chair faced. At about eye level, someone had made a small hole, half an inch across, maybe less. It had been drilled deliberately. And then I realized when I leaned closer, covered with a small square of dark mesh, the kind used in screen doors, so that it blended with the shadows. From the kitchen side, you would never notice it. From this side, sitting in that chair, you would have a clear, angled sightline directly into my kitchen. I left the house that night.
I sat in my car in the driveway and called the only person I could think to call, which was my older brother. He drove 40 minutes to come sit with me, and we went back in together and I showed him all of it. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he said, very quietly, "Danny, who lived here before you?" I didn't know. I only knew what my realtor had told me. A family, relocating for work, motivated sellers. That was the entirety of my knowledge about the people who had lived inside those walls before me. What we found next, I have gone over in my mind hundreds of times since then, trying to construct a story that makes it less disturbing than it is. And I have never succeeded. On the concrete floor of the room, pushed against the far wall and partially hidden behind a section of fallen insulation, there was a plastic storage bin, the kind you use for holiday decorations or winter clothes. It was sealed with a lid. My brother and I looked at each other, and I think both of us were afraid in a way we hadn't been afraid since childhood. That specific fear of not knowing what something is, but knowing somehow that you don't want to find out. We opened it. Inside were notebooks. 6 of them. The standard composition kind, black and white marbled covers. And photographs. Printed photographs. The kind made at a drugstore photo counter.
Loose in a large Ziploc bag. I didn't read the notebooks that night. I couldn't. I looked at one page, the first page of the top notebook, and I closed it again. The handwriting was neat and small, and what I read in those first few lines was enough to tell me that this was not something I should be handling. The entry was dated. It referenced a woman's name and a time, 6:20 a.m., and described in calm, clinical detail what she had been doing in the kitchen that morning. The photographs in the bag were of the interior of the house. My house. Taken through doorways and from odd angles. From low down near the floor. From high up near the ceiling. Some were of the kitchen. Some were of the bedroom upstairs. Some, I realized with a cold, slow horror, had been taken through the mesh-covered hole in the wall. They showed the previous occupants, a woman, a child, going about their daily lives. Cooking, eating, standing at the sink. Someone had been living in that room, or at least using it. Watching. For how long, I had no way to know. I called the police that night. They took the notebooks and the photographs. A detective told me
3 weeks later that the former owners had moved quickly because the wife had become frightened. She'd started to feel watched in her own home, but could never identify why. She'd assumed she was imagining it. She hadn't been. The investigation led to a former handyman who had been hired to do renovation work on the house 2 years before I purchased it. He had built the room himself during a week when the family was on vacation. He had apparently kept a key. I sold the house 8 months after I bought it. I took a significant loss. When the new buyers asked me why I was selling so soon, I told them the truth. All of it. I felt I had no other choice. They bought it anyway. Some people, I suppose, need to learn things for themselves. I still think about that chair sometimes. The way it was positioned. The care that had gone into hiding that room. Into maintaining it. Into making sure no one stumbled upon it accidentally. The patience that requires. The dedication. That's the part that stays with me. Not the fear of that night. Not the police reports or the investigation or the sale. It's the patience. The long, quiet willingness to sit in the dark and simply watch. Some people are capable of extraordinary things. Most of them, you'd never know to look at them.